Welcome to your Saturday morning practice. Make sure that you have with you a blanket that you can kind of roll up. A pillow or cushion from your couch, pillow from your couch. Something with just a little bit of, not as squishy. And if you have blocks, then you can feel free to grab a set of blocks as well. We'll try to do this with just whatever you have handy. We're just going to move really gently into the spine this morning. And so the more materials that you have, just depending on the flexibility of your spine, the more depth that you will experience. But as we move into a more kind of gentle restorative practice in nature, it's more so not necessarily depth to strive for, but really just kind of stillness and duration. And so the longer holds that we take help the body to relax. So if you have a block or a book or something of that nature, that might be helpful for this first one. And we're going to start with the block potentially underneath a blanket or pillow. That'll be up to you, just depending on height, and you can always bring your block up a little higher, or you can use more elements to kind of layer on top. And we're gonna find this first posture kind of seated right up on top of this little bridge that we'll make, this little mound. So you'll feel your tailbone, your sacrum kind of come down towards the block. Keep your knees bent at first and just start to help yourself down onto the back. And then from here, you've got many options. You can keep your knees bent and you can walk your feet a little wider, let your knees rest inwards on one another. You could take the soles of the feet together to touch and let the knees drop off to the sides, just to kind of add that extra layer for opening up the hips and groin. Or you can straighten the legs long and potentially drape the arms up and overhead. And just taking these first few moments to close the eyes and to relax the mind, the body, just allowing the body to drape over top of the props. Deepening your inhales and lengthening your exhales. And as you just start to relax the body and connect with the breath, start to do an inventory. Noticing what you brought with you onto the mat and into this pose this morning. And when I say inventory, I mean mind, body, spirit. Sometimes it's easier for us to take an inventory of the body. Where am I feeling tension this morning? And that might require a little bit of movement into these various places of the body, maybe starting from the tips of your toes and just working your awareness up towards the crown of the head. Noticing tension in any portion of the feet, the ankles, the legs, the knees, maybe the hips, the pelvis, the low back, anywhere in and along the spine, shoulders, arms, chest, neck, throat, jaw, head, face. And just starting to relax the body with every single breath. To take an inventory of the mind, noticing the thoughts that are still lingering somewhere in the back corners of the mind. Almost like when we leave too many browsers open on our computer. We're not necessarily viewing each and every page, but they're there in the background, kind of taking up space and stealing from our vital energy. And so instead of simply minimizing some of these mental browsers, we just want to delete, exit, clear them all away. Sometimes we wake up in the morning with thoughts from yesterday. And instead, I invite you to be here now, in the present. And that is really a moment-to-moment decision on your part. To take an inventory of spirit would maybe be a little bit better to describe as emotions, energies. What is your current emotional state? What have you brought forward? This doesn't have to mean that you're going through a hard time or you're feeling deeply emotional. Emotions can be twofold. And so just sort of scanning the body for these answers. All the while the body drapes over top of your block, your pillow, your blankets. As we start to think about moving our bodies along the spine for our practice this morning, know that there are very, very vital and very crucial energy centers that run along the spine and well beyond the spine as well, that connect us to the cosmos, that connect us to Mother Earth, that connect us to ourselves and each other. And we speak of these as chakras in yoga. They're known as dantiyans in traditional Chinese medicine. They have many, many names and have been used in many, many ancient traditions. And these energy bodies are affected by everything that we eat, think, feel, the way that we move, the way that we suppress any emotions that we don't express. Now we're going to continue to use this bundle of block, pillow, blanket, but for now, if your knees are not bent, bring them into a bend. And we'll go ahead and just lift the hips and slide all of those props out from underneath. Come flat down on the back, retain the bend to the knees. And just allow the knees to sway side to side, left to right. And if it would feel really inviting, you might pull the knees into the belly for a nice big hug. Finding your last big breath. And you might pull yourself all the way up to seated to set ourselves up for the next level. We're going to work our way up the spine. So for this next one, you can, you might start to move. If you were using a block or a book for the first one, that's fine for the sacrum, but you might move to something a little softer. And so I have a pillow and a blanket on top of my block. And this is a great way to get just a little bit deeper, but also to make it more comfortable. So your sit bones will come right to the mat, and you'll just kind of back yourself right up so that your sacrum is pressed against all of your props, and help yourself move all the way down. And so we're really just kind of sinking into the natural curvature of the spine here, letting the shoulders relax down onto the mat. And at any point that you find that this is a little too deep, again, you can start to come down into maybe just a pillow. Or again, if your blanket is one that would fold nicely, you might even just roll that blanket into a little cylindrical tube and rest the spine along this tube instead. So you've got many, many options here. The idea is just to create a little bit more of a deeper opening than is natural. So again, you can keep your knees bent, maybe rest the inner knees together on top of one another. Maybe Supta Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together to touch knees to the side. And maybe legs extended, your choice. Relaxing your jaw and then tuning back into a really deep breath, filling the body. You might even attempt to find a small retention of breath at the top of the inhale and at the bottom of the exhale. It doesn't have to be longer than a second or several. But just pausing long enough to notice the space in between the breath. Relaxing any additional tension. Every time that we switch postures is a great time to find any of those inventory pieces that we noticed the first time around. Checking in again with any tension that has crept back into the body, into the mind, into the emotional body or the spirit. By developing a practice in this way where we are constantly reevaluating, constantly paying attention, constantly taking an inventory of self, we start to cultivate a much deeper sense of awareness of self and others. Deepening your breath in and lengthening your breath out. Allowing for that small pause, that space between breaths. Notice the way the body feels as it receives an inhale. Notice how the body receives as it exhales. Allowing the body to get heavy here. Lick your lips and swallow, relax your jaw. Relax your head, your neck, your shoulders. As you breathe, observe your breath. The breath is my favorite metaphor for the contrast or the polarity or the duality of all that exists in this plane of reality. That is to say that the breath represents duality or polarity. And yet, when we breathe in, we wouldn't be able to say that the inhale is better than or worse than the exhale. We accept both as part of the whole. Now, if we wanted to start to insert judgment into the breath, perhaps we would find that the inhale deals with all that is pure, taking in this beautiful, clean air, whereas the exhale deals with all that is toxic, expelling from the body. And yet, without one, we cannot have the other. Life as we know it would cease to exist. If we could find the same approach to everything that goes on in our life, that it is part of a polarity, that it is part of the nature of duality, part of creation. And instead of just welcoming joy and striving solely to feel good feelings, that we embrace also these shadow aspects, the opposition of the suffering, the darkness, the times that feel heavy and dense. But it is our own judgment really that determines whether or not these experiences are good or bad. Just food for thought. Now, if your knees are not bent, rebend your knees. Taking hands just behind the backs of the legs and just helping the body all the way back up. And we'll slide. This time, if you've been using a block, you can feel free, if you've taken classes of mine before with 2 blocks as a heart opener, you can take that one instead. I'm going to invite most of us to fold up our blankets, and so depending on how tight the spine is, you'll either want a blanket that's nice and long, that's about as wide as your mat. If you've got quite a bit of flexibility, you'll fold that in half. And wherever you end up, you're just gonna roll this blanket nice and tight. And we're gonna set it a little higher now, moving away from the natural curvature of the spine and taking it higher to the space that's just underneath the shoulder blades. So that as we start to recline down this time, we've gone a little higher. And the shoulder blades are attempting to kind of lift up and over as we drop shoulders back, arms up overhead, grabbing opposite wrists. Now I find it best to extend the legs here as the low back naturally lifts up. But depending on your spine, you'll take the variation that works for you. Again, so we can walk the feet wider, let the knees rest inwards on one another. Soles of the feet together to touch or legs extended. Relax your body, lick your lips and swallow. Noticing any differences from the first posture to this one here. Using your awareness to scan the body for any signs of tension, either of the body, the mind, the emotions. Let the breath move in and out as deeply as we can facilitate. Perhaps again, noticing the pause at the top of the inhale or the bottom of the exhale. Deepening your inhales and lengthening your exhales and allowing shoulders, head, and neck to become very heavy. When we approach a more restorative in nature practice, and this will be a bit of a blend as we get moving a little later, we start to really take these longer holds to allow the body a chance to open up, because for the first few moments we're still in defense mode. And we are oh so good at being defensive. That goes for emotions as well as physicality. And so when we are defensive in our physical body, we resist the opening. Whereas the longer we hold, the more we fatigue the resistance, and we can start to rest and settle into a little bit of depth. You might even roll your head from side to side, just relaxing the neck. Watching the breath with the mind. And keeping the mind rooted in the present moment. Allow the breath to move deeper into the body as you inhale. And fully exhale, drawing the navel gently towards the spine. Noticing exactly where in the body we are feeling any type of sensation. Find another few breaths here. You can start to bring some movement into fingers and toes, and perhaps even draw the knees upwards towards the chest, wrapping arms around the knees or shins. And from here, we might place hands just behind the backs of the knees, helping the body all the way back up. We'll meet in seated now. And you might choose to retain your seat on top of your blanket, just folded, just for a little bit of added height. Placing one shin in front of the other, I would encourage you to cross your legs the awkward, uncomfortable way, just for the sake of balance. We tend to be creatures of habit. So sitting nice and tall, lengthening your spine, and noticing any roundness of your posture. That indicates that we need to lift the hips just a little bit higher. When hips are tight, low back is tight, and we end up with posture that's not desirable. So just, again, maybe adding a pillow or a block. And we'll take the right hand towards the right side. Inhale, left arm to the sky. And as we exhale, walk the right hand a little further away. Reach the left hand over to the right. You might even bend right elbow to start to just bend the spine in this direction. Now watch for your left shoulder. It likes to cut across the body. Let's see if we can lift armpit to the sky, and maybe your gaze follows. If you're looking for a little bit of extra opening for shoulders, palm to the back of the head, elbow to the sky. Find your breath. Inhale fully. And exhale, sweep your left hand to the left side. Right arm rises. Inhale. And as you exhale, walking left fingers just a little further away. Again, maybe planting palmar fingers, bending into the elbow. We want to keep both sit bones grounded. Sometimes when I'm folding over, I'll press into my fingers so that I can root deeply into that right sit bone while lifting right armpit up to the sky. And again, palm to the back of the head for additional opening for shoulder. Find your breath. Feel the right ribs expand, the right lung fill. Big breath in. Exhale, sweep right hand to the sky and rise. From here, we'll place the palms onto the knees and begin to tuck the chin into the chest, sitting back towards the tailbone and rounding out the spine, using your palms against your knees just to hold tightly so that you can round the spine, chin to the chest. Really drive that chin to the chest and notice the sensation. As we inhale, lift your gaze forward. Start to bring your heart forward. Up towards the sky, shoulders back and down, arching the spine. Exhaling to round, so it's kind of like our cat-cows in seated form. Chin to the chest is going to give you the most sensation. Inhale, lift your heart to the sky, back bend here. Exhale, round. Inhale to lift the heart. Exhale to round the spine. Last time, inhale, lifting the heart. Exhale, rounding the spine. Inhale, sit tall. So we'll meet in tabletop position. You may use your blanket if you like underneath the knees to provide just a little bit of extra padding. And we'll meet with knees under hips and wrists under shoulders. On your inhale, lift your tailbone towards the sky. Tilt your pelvis forwards. Begin to press into the base of the hands, lifting the heart forward, sliding shoulders back. Exhale, press into the palms, tuck the tail, cat pose, round the spine. Chin to the chest. Inhale, tail lifts, moving into your back bend, just moving with your own breath. Inhale takes you into your opening, your back bend position. And exhale, taking you into the rounded spine. Last few rounds, breathing in to find your cow pose, back bend. Exhale, round the spine. Inhale, lift. Exhale, round. With your next inhale, come to a neutral tabletop. We're going to walk the hands forward and then sit the hips back, child's pose. Making sure fingers are nice and far forward, the arms are straight and extended. We want the longest reach that we can have here. Find 3 breaths. Feel the ribs expand and contract. Big breath in. And as we exhale, look forward, lift the hips and shift them forward, coming into a supported plank. And we're coming all the way down to the belly. Tuck your elbows in towards your rib cage as you come down. As we land, we're going to move towards Sphinx pose. So setting your elbows under your shoulders at 90 degrees. And if that's a little too much for the spine, then what we can do instead is slide elbows forwards versus backwards. We never want the shoulder to come in front of the elbow crease. So you're better to be able to see your elbow crease than be unaware of whether or not it's behind you or not. Now, both elbows will be stacked underneath shoulders, and the wrists, if they can, will be in line with the elbows. Sometimes we need to move the thumbs a little closer to one another. That's okay. But really focusing on drawing the heart forward as you lower the low ribs. And right away, you might start to feel a little bit of tension in your low back. And so if that's the case, think about pressing your pubis bone down into the mat. You should feel your glutes and your core engaged. And this pressure of the pubis bone or the pelvis drawing down into the mat will start to tuck the tail and support and protect the low back. Now, while we are tucking the tail, press the tops of the feet down, engage the legs, kneecaps lift off the mat. Press into the palms and the elbows and really think about drawing the heart forward, shoulders down away from ears. Be wary of shoulders that creep up towards the ears. We want to be lifting up and out of the shoulders. Find your breath. You might close the eyes here as you breathe in and out through the nose. Keep tucking the tail, pressing the pelvis down. And a nice big breath in. And as we exhale, come all the way down to the belly. Take the palms beside the ribs. Tuck the toes and press back child's pose. Breathing in and out through the nose. Deepening the inhales and lengthening the exhales. Now, if we have kept our arms outstretched, we should be able to move right back into the same position, lifting our gaze, breathing in, shifting forwards. And exhaling all the way to the belly, placing elbows under shoulders right back into our Sphinx pose. Toes are untucked. Tops of the feet are pressing down, quads engaged, kneecaps lift. Tail tucks, pelvis presses down. And we press into palms and elbows as we offer the heart forwards. Shoulders down away from ears, soft jaw, relax your neck, relax your face, and find your breath. So if you could just offer the heart to the front of the room, eyes might be closed. Deepening your inhales and lengthening your exhales and noticing the sensations that are available here. Without labeling them as good or bad, just noticing what is. Lift up and out of your shoulders, press your elbows down. Big breath in. And exhale, lower all the way to the belly. Take your palms beside your ribs and press back child's pose. This time in your child's pose, allow your knees to come together. And maybe walk your hands back towards your heels, allowing shoulders to drape down and finding a more natural rounded spine here. Breathing in and out and noticing the contrast of the sensations offered here comparatively to the sensations we just experienced. When we can eliminate preference, we can start to move towards neutrality, which actually is peace. Breathing in and out through the nose. And a nice deep breath in. And as we exhale, start to rise all the way up to seated on the heels. And reach once again for your book or your block or whatever you had handy. You're going to use this based on your own capacity. We're going to move into puppy dog pose with a block to support the chest. And so you might have a block, or you might have a block and a pillow, or you might have a block and a pillow and a blanket, just depending on how the spine bends. Now we want to take our knees directly underneath our hips. So come up to sort of a tabletop position. And then begin to walk the hands forward and wide, resting the chest. So if you're just using a block, that block can come right towards the sternum. Making sure that we slide our hips back so that they're in line with the knees. And finding our breath. Deepening the inhale and lengthening the exhale. Noticing what you are feeling in the way of sensation and where it's occurring. And a big breath in. As we exhale, begin to lift your chest. Shift forward now so that the block that was under your chest is now coming underneath your hips. Allow your hips to rest, moving into a supported upward facing dog or seal pose. Palms are wide, shoulders down and back. Can feel really nice to bring the chin to the chest here and maybe allow the head to roll side to side. Deepening your breath in, lengthening your breath out. Rolling that head from left to right, nice and slowly. Big breath in. Tuck your toes if they're not tucked already. Lift your pelvis up and off the block and shift the hips back. Child's pose. Block to the side. Relax the head. Bringing your awareness to the energy current running down the spine. Noticing, if you can, the very subtle sensation of energy from crown of head to tailbone. Not only is this our information highway for the nervous system, but it is also responsible for our conscious evolution. Our ability to expand our spiritual selves, our emotional bodies. To develop what I like to call emotional IQ, or spiritual awareness. Big breath in. And as we exhale, begin to walk the hands all the way back up towards the knees. Let's lift up to kneeling, placing the palms at the back, the low back towards where if we were wearing jeans, we might have pockets, so just kind of above each glute. And drawing elbows back towards one another, tucking the tail softly, engaging through the glutes and the navel. Inhale, lengthen your spine. And as you exhale, very gently just shift your hips forward as you shift your shoulders back any amount. Keeping your neck strong and your gaze to where the wall meets the ceiling. If deeper variations of Ustrasana or Camel are in your practice, please feel free to customize and take them now. Remember, what you do on one side, you do on the other. Keep squeezing shoulders together. Big breath in. Exhale, rise. Sitting back towards the heels. Now we're going to move into seated, extending legs in front for an extended forward fold. And so if you prefer to have your block handy, you can. This is not going to be a regular forward fold, though. You might actually even roll up your blanket and place it underneath the knees. And this is going to be more of a restorative fold in nature. And so you want your pillows, you want to remove the extra flesh from under your sit bones so that you can get grounded. You might have one or two pillows, maybe a few blocks. And then from here, instead of focusing on fingers to toes, we're going to focus on allowing the spine to really just round and counter some of these opening postures that we've done. And so first, lifting and lengthening the spine. And then as we exhale, just begin to round the body, walking hands forward. And either just hanging chin to chest. For some of us, that just looks like this. We stay upright and we hang our chins towards our chest, and this is deep enough. So you're only moving forward as much as the body needs to. This is all about your needs. And wherever you find yourself, get heavy. You may turn the backs of the hands down onto the mat, palms to the sky. Lick your lips and swallow. Softening chin towards chest. Allow your breath to deepen here. And notice what parts of the body are also affected here by this draping, this forward folding. We all feel things very differently. The sensations that I receive are in through my low back and my outer glutes. But you might be feeling the hamstrings, the calves, the low back, the shoulders. So just observing what there is to notice here as you drape the body forward. No rush to touch the toes or to go anywhere. Allowing your breath to deepen. Clearing the mind if it starts to wander back to all of those thoughts from yesterday. The paradox is that now is the only time that exists, and so the future and the past are either illusory or memory. To stay rooted in the present allows us to create our future from a very meaningful, very powerful place. When we create our future from our past, we get more of the same.
So relax the mind, come back to your awareness of the breath, your awareness of the space between breaths. Observing any sensations in the body, in the mind. And again, holding these postures a little longer to fatigue the defense mechanism so that we can settle into and surrender into the discomfort. Perhaps it's already felt like an eternity. And instead of counting the minutes or the seconds, bring your awareness back to the breath. Finding a few heavy sigh breaths here, if you will, that just allows you to settle a little deeper. Breathing in through the nose, big breath in, and sigh it out. Again, breathing in, and sigh it out. Last round in, and sigh. Can we transform the discomfort? Can we begin to find comfort within discomfort? Just a few more breaths. Don't give up on yourself now. Recognize that discomfort is really catalyst for change and growth and expansion. And everything that we have ever wanted lay on the other side of discomfort. Big breath in. And exhale, very slowly drag your heavy arms and upper body all the way up to seated. We'll begin to move our props off to the side, although keep them close and keep them handy. And we'll shift forward so there's plenty of space behind us to recline all the way down onto the back. Let's go ahead and pull the knees into the belly once we arrive. Allow your head to roll from left to right. Maybe your knees rock left to right. From here, release the hands and set the soles of the feet down onto the mat, nice and wide with knees to the sky. Arms either up overhead, out in a T, or goddess arms, 90-degree bend at the elbows. And very gently, we'll just start to allow knees to drop from one side on our exhale, pausing for an inhale. And dropping to the other side on another exhale, pausing for an inhale. And moving in this way, releasing any tension from the spine, the low back. time that you find your knees dropping to one side, hold it there. Take your gaze in the opposite direction. And you might take the outer heel towards the top of the inner knee. Just facilitating a little bit of a deeper stretch, provided that there's no pain in that inner knee. Big breath in, releasing any crossing of the legs. As we exhale, knees to the sky and over to the other direction, and then again pausing here, gazing in the opposite way. And again, perhaps the outer heel places itself on top of the inner knee, the outer edge of the inner knee. Just allowing the breath in and out through the nose. Big breath in, releasing any crossing of the ankles. Bringing knees back up to the sky. Gently lift the hips, tuck the tail, and set the low back down, the place that's normally curved. Really set that down into the mat and pull the knees in towards the belly here. Now keeping that low back flat towards the mat, let's find a variation of happy baby. So either soles of the feet towards the sky and just kind of wrapping arms around the backs of the knees. Or maybe hands come towards calves, ankles, outer edges of feet. Peace fingers to big toes. Wherever you find yourself with the arms, pressing the low back down into the mat. Knees wide. You might even rock side to side here if that feels okay. And your hips like to lift here in your happy baby right up off the mat. Eventually over time we start to lower the spine down. Taking your last few breaths. And if there is any other movement that you would like to take, please feel free to take it now. Preparing yourself for your final Shavasana. Really is no right or wrong way to move the body. Well, I suppose pain would be the wrong way. Just allowing any movements that feel intuitively necessary. And as we begin to settle into our version of Shavasana, I'm going to just close with some sentiments about purpose from this book called Oneness with All Life by Eckhart Tolle. They're just little inspirational selections from his book A New Earth, which is very profound. So relaxing down onto your back, finding a nice big breath in through your nose and sigh it out through your mouth.
Awakened doing is the alignment of your outer purpose, what you do, with your inner purpose, awakening and staying awake. Through awakened doing, you become one with the outgoing purpose of the universe. Consciousness flows through you into this world. It flows into your thoughts and inspires them. It flows into what you do and guides and empowers it. The modalities of awakened doing are acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. Each one represents a certain vibrational frequency of consciousness. You need to be vigilant to make sure that one of them operates whenever you are engaged in doing anything at all, from the most simple task to the most complex. If you are not in the state of either acceptance, enjoyment, or enthusiasm, look closely, and you will find that you are creating suffering for yourself and for others. So simple, and yet it requires our full awareness and attention every single moment of every single day. Allowing this sense of awakening to infuse all that we do. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Feel free to stay here in your Shavasana for as long as you need, as long as you like, as long as you can. And choose to begin any of your doing today from this state of acceptance, enthusiasm, or enjoyment. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Namaste.